The 20th century. 100 years that forged a new America. A century of trial and triumph, of conflict and conscience. It began with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages on cobblestone streets and ended with a hum of the internet connecting a global village. This is the story of that transformation, a journey through the moments that defined a nation and shaped the world we live in today. Imagine the dawn of the 1900s. America was a nation brimming with confidence, its cities swelling with new arrivals from every corner of the globe, each chasing a dream. The air crackled with the energy of invention. The automobile was no longer a novelty. The first airplanes were taking flight, and the rhythms of ragtime and jazz began to pulse from the heart of its cities. But this era of optimism would soon be tested. The Great War erupted in Europe, a conflict of unprecedented scale and brutality. For 3 years, America watched from the sidelines, a bastion of neutrality in a world tearing itself apart. But the tide turned. In 1917, American soldiers, the doughboys, crossed the Atlantic to fight in the trenches of France. They went with a sense of duty, believing they were fighting a war to end all wars. Their return heralded a new, more prominent role for America on the world stage, but it also left a scar, a collective memory of loss that would linger for a generation. The decade that followed was a dizzying whirlwind of change. The Roaring Twenties. It was the age of the flapper, of speakeasies and silent films, of soaring stock markets, and the birth of a mass consumer culture. For the first time, many Americans had disposable income, and they spent it on radios, refrigerators, and the ultimate symbol of freedom, the automobile. The nation seemed to be on an endless upward trajectory, a party that would never end. But every party does end. In October 1929, the music stopped. The stock market crash plunged the nation into the Great Depression, the most severe economic downturn in its history. The optimism of the 20s evaporated, replaced by breadlines, Dust Bowl migrations, and widespread despair. Families lost everything. The American dream seemed to have become a nightmare. It was a time of immense hardship, but also of incredible resilience. Neighbors helped neighbors. Communities pulled together, and from this crucible of suffering, a stronger, more compassionate society began to emerge. Franklin Delano Roosevelt entered the White House with a promise of a New Deal, assuring a frightened nation that the only thing they had to fear was fear itself. His programs reshaped the relationship between the government and its citizens, creating a social safety net and putting millions back to work building the dams, bridges, and parks that still stand today. The nation was slowly, painfully, beginning to heal. But just as the shadows of the Depression began to recede, a darker storm was gathering across the oceans. Fascism was on the march in Europe, and imperial ambition was consuming Asia. Once again, America tried to remain aloof, but the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, shattered that isolation forever. It was a day that would live in infamy, a day that propelled the United States into the Second World War. This was a total war. 16 million Americans, from every walk of life, served in uniform. At home, the country transformed into the arsenal of democracy. Women, symbolized by Rosie the Riveter, poured into factories to build the planes, ships, and tanks that would win the war. It was a monumental effort, a testament to a nation united against a common foe. Under gray, unforgiving skies, American soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, fought island by island across the Pacific, and paid the ultimate price for liberty. The war ended with the mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ushering in the atomic age and a new, terrifying geopolitical reality. The post-war years brought a new kind of conflict, the Cold War. A tense, ideological struggle against the Soviet Union that divided the world. The threat of nuclear annihilation hung over everything. Jets streaked across the skies above Washington, D.C., a constant reminder of the high-stakes standoff. America fought proxy wars in Korea and, most divisively, in Vietnam. The fear of communism at home led to the McCarthy era, a dark chapter of suspicion and blacklists. Yet, this was also a time of unprecedented prosperity. The GI Bill sent a generation of veterans to college, fueling an economic boom. Families flocked to the suburbs, creating a new vision of American life, centered around the single-family home, the television, and the station wagon. Rock and roll became the soundtrack for a new youth culture, a rebellion in blue jeans and leather jackets that challenged the conformity of the 1950s. But beneath this polished surface of prosperity, a long-simmering struggle for justice was reaching its boiling point. For millions of African Americans, the promises of liberty and justice for all remained unfulfilled. The civil rights movement rose to challenge the brutal reality of segregation and discrimination, led by visionary figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. People of conscience marched, protested, and sat in, demanding equality. From the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King shared his dream of a nation where his children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His voice, and the voices of countless others, echoed across the country, stirring the nation's conscience. It was a painful, often violent struggle, but it led to landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, fundamentally altering the fabric of American society and moving the nation closer to its founding ideals. The late 20th century was a whirlwind of social and technological revolutions. The counterculture of the 1960s questioned authority. The feminist movement demanded equality for women, and the environmental movement called for the protection of our planet. America put a man on the moon, a stunning achievement that captured the world's imagination and symbolized the boundless potential of human ingenuity. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 signaled the beginning of the end for the Cold War, and the decade that followed, the 1990s, was one of relative peace and economic growth. The digital revolution began to reshape every aspect of life, connecting us in ways previously unimaginable. The century drew to a close not with a bang, but with the quiet hum of servers and the glow of computer screens. From the trenches of World War I to the dawn of the digital age, the 20th century was a 100-year saga of a nation constantly reinventing itself. It was a century of immense sacrifice and breathtaking achievement, of bitter division and remarkable unity. The grainy photographs and flickering newsreels from these decades are more than just historical records. They are windows into the soul of a nation, capturing the struggles and triumphs that have made America what it is today. This is our shared story, a legacy of resilience and hope that continues to unfold. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a truly American century. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. We'll see you next time.